Hey gamers, if you like deck building, track upgrades, and tile placement, then you want to check out Rise of Babel. Let's take a look at how this game plays. In this game, players are going to be building out their deck, upgrading their resources, and ultimately building out a tower over the course of 3 rounds. Players will start with a deck of 10 cards. All decks for the players that they start with are the same, and a bag of tiles. On a player's turn, they will draw 5 cards from their deck, and they'll have various things on them that they can do. If they have some of these basic wealth and riches cards, they will just get some gold, and gold doesn't carry over into future turns, so they will have to spend anything that they get or otherwise just lose it. This card has some options for me, so I can either get another gold, which might be helpful if I'm looking to get a more expensive card, or I can move my elephant, and this card here will let me move something in from my stalls, which is a section on my upgrade board, onto my camp, which is how I'll be able to load up my elephant. So maybe I want to do that because I have this combo here. So I'm going to move something into my camp, so that card is all set, and then I will immediately also refill from my bag, and then I'm going to move my elephant. Whenever your elephant is at your camp, you can freely load and unload it if you had multiple things there until you decide that you're going to move, and then I would just move, because I have 1 movement, I would move 1 spot forward. Some of the other starting cards that players will have is anything that has this symbol means that once you use that ability on it, you'll discard it. Otherwise, I can get a gold for it. But to upgrade, which is what this card is, and I have another one of those here as well that is reusable. You'll move something from your stalls into your warehouse here, and then you'll move the appropriate matching token here onto the next upgrade space. So you might look at, for example, the first step in all of them is getting one of your double resource tiles. So you might look at which one of those you want, and that might help you determine what you might want to upgrade. I'm going to go ahead and move this blue here, and again, I'm going to go ahead and refill my stalls, and then I'll move this token over, which immediately gets me this double resource token to my warehouse, and I would be all set with that upgrade action. Some other things that I can do, again, this is using my elephant movement or moving something into my camp. This would be moving something from my stalls into my warehouse is one option, or a new one is moving something from my warehouse right onto a tower. Whenever you're going to put something onto a tower, whether that's from your elephant, when they arrive at the tower, you would unload them and then they would warp back to the camp, or if you're unloading from your warehouse onto the tower, it's going to work very similarly. There are always a couple of different towers that you have to choose from, and early on, the larger one in the center does start out a little bit smaller, and it'll go from a 3x3 to a 4x4, and then finally to a 5x5. But you can play on any of the towers at any time. If you do happen to cover something that matches, so I covered a blue with a blue tile, I would get a point for that. But I don't have to do that. I can cover this white one with a blue one because I just decided that's a better spot for me to go. If you cover one of these symbols here, that is moving, again, something from your stalls into your camp, so you can immediately take that ability as well. As you gain points, you will also potentially earn confusion tiles, which are these here, and those can go as well anywhere on the board, and they can cover images as well that would give players bonuses. And at the end of rounds, when you're doing scoring, you would subtract points for any confusion tiles that you happen to be next to. A round will end when all of the currently active towers are full, and then players will score according to the scoring at the bottom of the board here. The blue brick will score for vertical lines, the wood will score for horizontal lines, the stone will score for diagonal lines, and then the tar will score for any that are next to one another. So like this would be 2, 2, 2, 2, and then you will score any confusion tiles. So this one would be -2 for red and -2 for yellow because they're both next to it twice. And then you would wipe all of the towers and replace them with the new ones for the new round. And you'll also put out the new tower again so that that one in the center does get larger, and so you can set up for larger scoring opportunities as well. After 3 rounds, you'll do final scoring, where players will also get potentially some points from cards that they've put in their deck and points that they've earned for their board. If they've moved up on the resource track here, then they will be able to score some more points for getting certain upgrades. And then whoever has the highest score will be the winner. So there's a lot going on in this game, as you could tell. There's a lot of different mechanisms all kind of at play at once. And I also only kind of did a brief overview of the base game. This is the legendary box, so a lot of the components are the upgraded deluxe components, but it's also had a couple of expansions in it, which I also was able to try out. First, to talk about the base game, I think that there's definitely something there. There's something that's a pretty decent game. I like deck building, I like having things that I can upgrade, and I like tile placement, and I like that you kind of have to like decide what you're going to try and bring with you for your elephant. You have to kind of plan out your moves really well, because you might get a card that lets you put something straight on the tower, but you might have to use that card for something else. So I think that everything works kind of well, but at the same time, I felt like in the base game, my biggest problem was that I couldn't generate enough money, that I couldn't really buy a lot of really good cards. I felt like I was buying just the Jobs and Teamsters, which are the cards that are always available in the market. I felt like I was buying a lot of those things pretty often, and didn't always have a good enough hand to be able to buy more and better cards. I think that the Fall of Man expansion really helps with that. I felt much more like I had a lot more money turn after turn. I was able to buy a lot more cards, and you have the potential to get an ability in that expansion where you can bank some money and store it for later. So I really liked that. I thought that that let me deck build a lot more, which I liked. Same things in the base game. I really do like doing upgrade tracks and things like that, because you get bonuses along the way. You can make it so that your elephant can carry more things. You can put things directly on the tower or get wilds to the tower. There's a lot of different things that you can get for special abilities on your board. But the same thing, I felt like I couldn't get enough upgrades in the base game because I just had my one card. But depending on how many cards you get or how often you see it, it just didn't feel like I could do enough on my board. So there's just definitely some balancing with that, and I think after more plays, I feel like maybe it'd be a little bit easier to see the strategy and like what's the best route to go with that in order to kind of make the best of both of those mechanisms on themselves. The tile placement, again, works pretty well, makes sense. All of the different materials, resources score in different ways, so you want to set them up differently on boards. It did, to me, feel a little bit weird, the smaller towers, because you couldn't score that many points on them, since they're just a 2x2, so that wasn't where the big scoring was, but at the same time, sometimes you could maybe get a whole square to yourself, because other people were competing for the center, the larger tower, so there's a little bit, again, of that like give and take there to kind of decide, and again, the center tower does get larger, so if you are able to have a really good turn and put out a bunch of tiles in one turn, you can potentially set up some really good scoring. That said, the timing of the rounds is a little bit weird, and you know, if somebody is scoring, it'll interrupt your turn, and you have to do all of the scoring, wipe all like the boards, and then continue your turn. So if somebody's able to place one tile and then do all the scoring and wipe everything, then they now have an open board available to them. Or if they aren't, and they are still finishing a round, and then it's like the end of their turn, then the next player has all that opportunity to them again. You don't like finish a round, you don't score points for things that like you couldn't deliver because it'll interrupt and wipe. So the timing of the rounds feels a little bit weird sometimes, and depending on your turn order, like where you're going in the turn order, it might not work out for you that well. So again, that's another thing where I think after more plays, potentially you'll see that kind of balance out. But after a couple of initial plays, I did feel like the timing kind of was a little bit odd. Going back to the Fall of Man expansion, I liked that had an additional board for you that had different abilities again that you could get on it. Like you could get workers, you could get your elephant to move more, you could get your workers to carry items for you, so you had multiple ways of bringing things to the tower. So overall, I would say that I did really like that expansion. I think I would probably play with that one the most often. I would probably go ahead and add that in because I don't think that it added too much. It changed your starting deck just a little bit. It added more cards to the market. So I think overall, I really preferred the game with that expansion. The other expansion I tried out was the Foundations expansion, which changes the main board a little bit. You can either play on one side of the playmat has where you don't wipe the board in between, so you'll fill in section 1 and score, and then you'll fill in section 2 but not removing anything, so potentially you could get better scoring going into future rounds, which is kind of cool, but it does change the dynamic of the game quite a bit. And then the other side of the Foundations board is instead of playing with one tower that gets larger and larger, you're only going to play with the smaller towers, and you'll add more and more to the grid depending on your player count. That changes the size of the grid. and you'll add more and more of those, and you will score. So if I score a 2x2, but then later I score right next to it, I'll look at both of those towers. So again, you can set up for larger scoring, but it is also potential that you can get blocked out of certain areas because you have to play adjacent to adjacent towers that you're already on, which can again just be kind of a feel bad thing. And I also just kind of felt like the scoring was a little bit more confusing on that map than any of the other ways that I played. That one for some reason just felt a little bit weirder because I wasn't sure sometimes what boards I should look at or what was connected or not based on it. So, but that's probably more me thing. Visually, it was a little bit harder for me to kind of understand where everything was or needed to be or what I was scoring. But overall, like I said, I'm looking at the legendary box, so it has all this stuff right in it. Looking at the base game, I think that the base game kind of falls at around a 5 for me, so I don't know that I would recommend the base game by itself. I think with the Fall of Man expansion, it elevates it quite a bit, so I think if you are able to get your hands on that expansion or the legendary box, that to me is a better experience overall. But I will say, regardless of whether you're playing with or without the expansion, I do think this game can be very lengthy. I've played at 2, 3, and 4 players, and I think that overall it is a lengthier game. So if you do like longer games, if you like that strategy of having a lot of different elements going on, then it might be more up your alley. But like I said, I would always play with the Fall Man expansion, I think. But the base game's okay too. You can try it out, see if that one's for you. Maybe try some different strategies that I maybe didn't see, which might improve how much you're able to deck build or how you're able to put your tiles out on the towers. But you check my full thoughts and watch today. Just decided this one's for you.